Shut up, trash. You don't belong here.
The silence of the early morning is shattered by a slur that would eventually dismantle a 20-year career. Trash like you belongs behind bars, not in a courthouse, Officer Martinez spat. It was a sentence that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Judge Kesha Williams was simply walking toward her place of work. She was a woman of striking presence, her deep, radiant ebony skin glowing under the soft morning sun. Dressed in professional civilian attire and carrying a leather briefcase packed with the day's legal files, she moved with the grace of a woman who commanded respect. To Martinez, however, she wasn't a peer or a superior. His vision was clouded by a dark, immediate prejudice. To him, she was just another ghetto rat trying to bypass his authority. He didn't just stop her, he mocked her. Before she could utter a word of protest, his open palm swung with a sickening crack, striking her face so violently that her head snapped to the side. Her briefcase slipped from her fingers, and the sensitive legal documents inside were tossed into the air, fluttering down onto the concrete steps like confetti. Martinez wasn't finished. He lunged forward, grabbing her by the throat and pinning her against the cold stone wall of the building. He repeated his vitriol. Filthy animals like you belong in cages, not courthouses. With a brutal twist, he forced her arms behind her back, the jagged metal of the handcuffs digging into her wrists. Nearby, a group of his fellow officers didn't intervene. They laughed, pulling out their phones to record the humiliation of the woman they refused to truly see. As her jaw throbbed with pain, Kesha's eyes drifted toward the bronze plaque mounted just 20 feet away. It read, "The Honorable Judge K. Williams presiding." She was being brutalized by the very system she led. Have you ever seen a situation where karma was about to hit this hard? What would you do if you were being silenced by the people sworn to protect you? If you're ready for the most satisfying reversal in history, hit like and subscribe. The Toss Stories Reckoning has just begun. Officer Martinez adjusted his collar and straightened his uniform, preparing to perform a routine he had mastered over 15 years, spinning a lie to make himself the hero. He was certain the system would take his word over a woman who looked like Kesha. Standing before the bench, his voice was smooth and practiced. "Your Honor," he began, "I was conducting a standard security sweep when I intercepted a suspicious individual attempting to infiltrate the facility." He pointed a finger at Kesha, who sat in cuffs with a dark bruise blooming across her cheek. He claimed she had been acting erratically and refusing to comply. The presiding official, a thin man named Judge Harrison, nodded along, completely absorbed in the officer's fiction. Martinez grew bolder, claiming Kesha was dressed inappropriately and was carrying what he assumed were stolen judicial records. The lies flowed like water. Martinez claimed she had become verbally aggressive, using threats and profanity. In the gallery, officers Rodriguez and Thompson traded smirks. They had heard this exact script dozens of times before. Martinez even mocked her desperate claims of being someone important, telling the court that these people always pretend to be judges or lawyers to avoid the consequences of their actions. "Did she resist?" Harrison asked. "Absolutely," Martinez lied, his voice rising with righteous fury. "I was forced to use minimal force for public safety." Only a slight tremor in his hand betrayed the act. As the stenographer recorded every word, a young law clerk in the back frowned, a flicker of recognition crossing her face. Have you ever felt the rage of being lied about by someone in power? What would you do if the entire room believed a lie over your truth? Don't go anywhere. Like and subscribe, because the trap Martinez is building for himself is about to snap shut. The courtroom was thick with a false sense of justice. Officer Rodriguez took the stand, his uniform immaculate, and threw the full weight of his badge behind Martinez's lies. He testified that the defendant was clearly trying to bypass security and that Martinez had acted with remarkable professionalism. When Judge Harrison questioned the visible injuries on Kesha's face, Martinez's jaw tightened. He insisted he used only the force necessary to subdue a threat, claiming her bruises were her own fault for resisting. To clinch the deal, Martinez pulled out his phone, playing a video that conveniently started in the middle of the struggle. He lied through his teeth, claiming his body camera had suffered a malfunction that morning. How convenient, Kesha remarked quietly. It was her first time speaking, and it made Judge Harrison raise an eyebrow, though she remained perfectly calm. Martinez shifted into a lecture on social issues, claiming Kesha was playing the victim card and using accusations of racism to deflect from her alleged crimes. He even suggested her briefcase full of judicial files was proof of a fraud scheme to impersonate court personnel. The irony was suffocating, yet the gallery, filled with courthouse staff, nodded in agreement. They were comfortable with this narrative. Martinez ended his testimony by looking Kesha in the eye with pure contempt, declaring that these people can't just waltz into his courthouse and scream discrimination. He was so confident in his victory that he didn't notice Kesha taking a mental tally of every fabrication. He had no idea he was testifying in front of the one person with the power to end him. Have you ever watched someone dig their own grave with so much confidence? What would you do if you were the only person in the room who knew the truth? Stay tuned. The Toss Stories reversal is about to get legendary. Like and subscribe now. Officer Martinez stepped down with a triumphant wink, certain of his total dominance. Judge Harrison invited the defendant to speak, expecting a mere formality before sentencing. But as Kesha Williams rose, the handcuffs clinking against her wrists, the atmosphere in the room shifted. Despite her disheveled state and the bruise on her cheek, she radiated a terrifying level of dignity. "Thank you, Your Honor," she began, her voice filled with a professional authority that filled the room. She didn't offer a tearful plea, she offered a legal deconstruction. She cited Supreme Court rulings on public forums, proving she had a constitutional right to be on the sidewalk. She addressed the stolen documents, identifying them as judicial memoranda and case files she held in her professional capacity. When Harrison pressed her on her profession, she simply smiled. Dr. Williams, we will get to my background shortly. Martinez felt a sudden, icy chill. Kesha then moved for the kill. She didn't just mention the malfunctioning body cam. She informed the court that the county keeps automatic cloud backups and that high-definition security cameras cover every inch of the courthouse entrance. She formally requested a preservation order for all footage, including the private phone recordings made by the laughing officers. The prosecutor's objection was swatted away as Kesha cited the Sixth Amendment and Brady v's Maryland. The silence was now deafening. Finally, she reached into her pocket and produced her judicial parking pass, her building access card, and a leather credential wallet. As the bailiff, Henderson, turned pale with sudden recognition, Kesha held up the gold judicial seal. "I believe there's been a significant misunderstanding about who exactly Officer Martinez assaulted this morning. Have you ever seen a man realize his life is over in a single second? What would you do if the person you just insulted was actually your boss? Stay for the final part. Like and subscribe because the robes are coming on." During a tense 15-minute recess, the courthouse buzzed with panic. In a small side room, Bailiff Henderson's hands shook as he fumbled with the handcuffs. "Judge Williams, I am so sorry," he whispered, his voice thick with horror. Kesha remained calm. She sent him on a single mission. "Go to my chambers. Bring my black robes with the gold trim. And Henderson, bring my ceremonial gavel." While she waited, Kesha messaged the chief judge of the district, ensuring every camera angle from the morning was secured in multiple locations. "Margaret," she said over the phone, "an officer just spent an hour lying under oath about subduing a criminal. That criminal was me. He called me an animal and told me I belonged in a cage." When the doors finally swung open, the announcement hit the room like a thunderbolt. "The Honorable Judge Kesha Williams presiding." Officer Martinez went rigid, his face turning a sickly shade of green. Judge Harrison practically fled the bench as Kesha entered in her full judicial robes, her gold trim catching the light. She took her rightful seat and looked down at Martinez. "You said actions have consequences, officer. Do you recall that?" She then played the malfunctioning footage. The room watched in horror as the raw, unedited video showed Martinez's unprovoked assault and his racist slurs. She played audio from the other officers' body cams, catching them mocking her as a welfare queen. "I have been the presiding judge of this courthouse for 23 years, Kesha declared, her voice cold as steel. She revealed that Martinez had already been under a 6-month investigation for civil rights violations. He hadn't just committed a crime, he had provided the final piece of evidence needed to dismantle his entire career. As the gavel came down with a sound like thunder, Martinez collapsed. Is there anything more satisfying than seeing a bully meet the absolute limit of their power? What would you do if you held the gavel in a moment like this? From the other side of silence, toss stories, where real voices rise and truth finds its echo. Like, subscribe, and share this story, because stories like this help you understand what justice looks like when it isn't blind to the truth.